Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something that is frankly just essential. We're trying to cut through all the noise around modern cybercrime.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about, the same old phishing emails that we've seen for years.
Not at all. We're looking at a much more sophisticated landscape now. One where artificial intelligence can clone a CEO's voice perfectly, where attackers can steal your session right out from under you, bypassing your best defenses.
And we're focusing on where these attacks are hitting hardest, which is, kind of ironically, the organizations that are most driven by their mission.
Exactly. We're talking about charities and nonprofits and how they are just uniquely unprepared for what's coming at them.
It's a really necessary look behind the curtain. We've pulled together some really powerful sources that should force pretty much every organization and really every individual to take a hard look at their own security.
The timing on this couldn't be more critical either. We're heading straight into the holiday season, the busiest time for transactions.
Which is the perfect cover for these threat actors. It's when they can maximize their profit and cause the most disruption because everyone is distracted.
So our source material today, it really cuts across a few different areas. We're looking at technology, hard data, and even human psychology.
Right. We're starting with the pretty stark reality of the nonprofit world. We're pulling from the 7th annual Nonprofit Cybersecurity Incident Report from Community IT Innovators.
Then we're getting some tactical insights on these seasonal holiday threats from some industry giants, like the retail and hospitality ISAC and Visa PR.
And we'll be dissecting the really advanced stuff, the evolution of identity theft, using some deep analysis on deepfake scams from Epsure.
And to tie it all together, we're going to ground everything in the science of why these attacks actually work on us, pulling some key ideas about trust and trauma from psychology today.
Yeah, that part's fascinating.
So the mission for you, our listener, is pretty clear. We're giving you a comprehensive shortcut here.
Right. The goal is that you walk away understanding not just the names of the new threats, like attacker in the middle.
We want you to understand how they actually work, the underlying technology they're using, and maybe most importantly, the vulnerabilities in our own systems or even our own minds that they're designed to exploit.
And look, if you just need one number to really drive home how urgent this is, here it is.
This one's Stalker.
North America saw a 1,740% increase in deepfake fraud in 2023.
It's just an unimaginable number.
It is. I mean, this isn't theoretical. It's not some future threat. It's happening right now. Threat actors are deploying AI, and they're not just using it to steal your password. They're automating the theft of your credentials and your authenticated session cookies.
Which means the defenses we all relied on yesterday, they're starting to fail today.
They really are.
So before we jump into those startling nonprofit statistics and, the reasons behind that explosive growth in deepfakes, we really want to take a moment to thank our core sponsors.
Absolutely. They help us deliver all this research.
A huge thanks to www.seizmarketplace.com and www.scamwatchhq.com. Your commitment to informed security is what makes these deep dives possible.
It really is. We couldn't do it without them.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with a sector that is basically defined by goodwill and public trust.
The nonprofit world.
Right. And when you look at the sheer scale of the incidents in that community IT data, the first question that pops into my head is just, why? Why are organizations with a .org at the end of their name such a magnet for these sophisticated criminals?
It's a perfect storm, really. A storm of incentive and, structural weakness.
Okay, so let's break that down. What's the incentive side?
On the incentive side, nonprofits are just incredibly rich targets for data. I mean, they collect and store massive amounts of sensitive PII.
Personally identifying information.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about a list of email addresses. We're talking about donor postal addresses, their email addresses, contact numbers, detailed family member data, sometimes even employer information.
And the really critical piece, I imagine, is the financial data.
That's the crown jewel. Stored, recurring bank account and credit card numbers for all those monthly donations. That data is absolute gold on the black market. It can be monetized instantly through identity theft or just straight up financial fraud.
And there's another angle here too, right? The domain itself. As Charity First has pointed out, the .org domain kind of works against them.
It does, because a .org often ranks really high on Google. It signals legitimacy, authority, trust.
Which is great for attracting new donors.
It is, but it also increases their visibility to every automated scanner and opportunistic hacker out there who's just looking for an exposed database. they stick out.
So that's the incentive. What about the structural challenge? You said that's the most profound part.
It really is, and it's the hardest part to solve. Nonprofits are mission-driven. Every single dollar, ethically and often legally, is supposed to be funneled directly toward their core mission.
Feeding the hungry, supporting education, saving the planet, whatever it might be.
Exactly. And that core incentive, that drive, it often actively prevents or, at the very least, severely limits any investment in robust modern cybersecurity measures.
Because security is seen as overhead?
It's seen as taking money away from the mission. And we've seen findings where the staff themselves have this naivety, as the research calls it. They think, why would anyone attack us? We're a charity. We're doing good work.
And that very perception that they're somehow off limits is precisely what creates the gap for attackers to walk right through.
That mindset is rampant. And the data, it shows the predictable and frankly alarming consequences.
So let's look at the numbers from the 2024 Community IT Report.
The total number of reported incidents hit 2,038.
Wow.
And just to put that in context, that represents a massive 76% increase year over year from the last report.
76%. I mean, the sheer volume of that increase shows they're not just being targeted, they're being aggressively targeted. It's a concerted effort.
It is. And if you break down the high-risk trends in that report, you can see exactly where the immediate, the kinetic threats are really concentrating.
Okay, what are we seeing?
Brute force attacks. These are automated tools just relentlessly hammering away, trying to guess passwords. Those spiked. 273 incidents, which is up 54% year over year.
And I saw there were 32 confirmed compromised accounts.
Right, and that's a critical number. That means in 32 cases, the attackers didn't just knock on the door, they got in. They took control.
But the medium risk trends, those are almost more illuminating. They really show the preferred method of entry for these attackers.
They absolutely do. It's the path of least resistance. Social engineering, hitting the human element.
So what were the numbers there?
Suspected compromised accounts, where they think someone got in but can't fully confirm it, accounted for 472 incidents.
A huge number.
And business email compromise, or BEC, along with spoofing attacks, those racked up 430 incidents. That's up 29% from the previous year.
And that just confirms it. Human manipulation, impersonating a boss, faking a vendor invoice to get a fraudulent payment, the classic gift card scam, that is the dominant way they're getting in.
It's easier, it's cheaper, and it's clearly incredibly effective.
Now, there's a detail in this report from Community IT that I found incredibly striking because it runs completely counter to what we're seeing in global cybersecurity trends.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They reported 0 ransomware incidents among the nonprofits they surveyed in 2024. 0.
Yeah.
I mean, globally, ransomware is surging. It's everywhere. Yet this entire sector is reporting none. Why? What's behind this critical distinction?
That finding is an analytical goldmine. It really is. It suggests a key distinction in the, let's call it the threat actor economy.
The business model of the hackers.
Precisely. For a huge corporation, encrypting all their data and demanding a massive Bitcoin payment is profitable. The company has cyber insurance, they have the funds to pay, the return on investment is there for the attacker.
But for a smaller or mid-sized nonprofit, say with 15 to 300 staff members,
the potential payout on a ransomware demand might just be too small. It might not justify the operational complexity for the criminal gang of, deploying the ransomware, managing the encryption, handling the decryption keys.
So the ROI shifts for the attacker. Instead of a really complex, noisy ransomware operation that gets a lot of attention,
They prefer high-volume, low-effort social engineering. Why go through all that trouble when you can just trick an employee into buying $10,000 in gift cards?
or diverting a vendor payment.
Exactly. The criminals who are targeting this sector, they are laser-focused on internal financial fraud, gift card scams, or just quietly harvesting that PII to sell later. They prioritize account takeover and wire fraud because the entry point is so much easier.
It's the human element.
It's the human element.
Yeah.
And the risk of detection is lower because the incident gets categorized as, an internal financial irregularity rather than a loud, obvious, system-wide shutdown that ransomware causes.
And that's so important. So given that the threat is overwhelmingly initiated by human error, someone clicking a link, responding to a spoofed email, the failure to implement just basic policy and training is, well, it's truly dangerous.
It is.
So let's talk about that policy and practice gap, because the numbers here from Charity First and N10N are just astonishing.
They're indefensible, really. An incredible 62.8% of the nonprofits they surveyed lacked any documented policies for how to handle a cyber attack.
So they have no playbook. When the inevitable happens, they're just making it up as they go.
No playbook at all. How can you possibly minimize damage or ensure you're making a legal response if you have no clear internal documentation to follow in a crisis?
And what about the most foundational technical defense we have? Multi-factor authentication. It's the basic lock on the front door.
Over 55% of these organizations reported they don't use MFA to log into their online accounts.
It's just an open invitation for attackers.
It really is. And to compound that, only a third of them reported using a password management tool. And of that third, half of them made its use optional for their staff.
So it's the Wild West of password management. Sticky notes and spreadsheets.
You know it. And when you consider that the average nonprofit attack back in 2016 seized over 12,000 records of sensitive data, the exposure risk is just immense.
And yet only 26% of charities report that they encrypt that sensitive information. It's just sitting there.
It's just sitting there.
I find the explanation for this reluctance to invest, really fascinating. The research pointed to a tension between transparency and security.
Yes, this is a core dilemma for them.
Nonprofits feel this pressure to show donors exactly where their money is going, sometimes down to the penny for a specific program.
Right? 100% of your donation goes to the field.
Exactly. So investing in overhead like a robust firewall or security training is perceived as diverting funds from the mission itself.
Even though that security is what protects their ability to execute the mission in the first place?
It's a paradox.
It creates a severe ethical dilemma for their leadership that leads to this chronic underinvestment. They struggle to justify spending on security because they prioritize what they call relational capital, the public's trust, as their most important asset.
But what they're failing to internalize, it seems, is that in the 21st century, good security is the only way to protect that trust.
That's the key. The policy gap isn't just about negligence. It's a symptom of this really deep-seated, mission-driven budgeting conflict.
And it perfectly sets the stage for the next part of our deep dive. How these sophisticated attackers are capitalizing on these human and structural weaknesses with some truly advanced technical tools.
So we've established the vulnerabilities. Now we move to the specific, evolving threat vectors that are exploiting that human trust and are often powered by AI. And we need to be really clear in defining these terms because the threat is just constantly shifting.
Okay, let's start by quickly clarifying the foundational terms before we get into the really advanced attacks. Let's start with spear phishing and spoofing.
So spear phishing is highly targeted. It's not a generic blast. It leverages specific knowledge about you, your name, your role, maybe a project you're working on, to create an email that appears completely authentic.
And it always has that urgent call to action.
Always. Click here, review this document, approve this payment. Spoofing is the simpler deception of just making the sender's address look legitimate, often using tiny typos or manipulated email headers.
The best defense there is still just hovering your mouse over the sender's name to see the real email address.
It's still the fastest way to spot it.
Okay, next up, smishing.
Text-based phishing. This is scaling up incredibly fast because of AI. While, a lot of them are still the obvious, your package delivery failed, click here, links.
We've all gotten those.
We all have. But we're seeing more and more sophisticated conversational exchanges happening over text. They're designed to lull the victim into a conversation, build a little trust, and then get them to share identity details or click an infected link.
All right, what about a tactic that's designed purely to induce panic and bypass our critical thinking? The malware browser pop-up.
This is pure psychological engineering. A window just opens up, often full screen, claiming your computer is infected, your files are encrypted, your data is being stolen.
It's all about creating that adrenaline rush.
Exactly. And crucially, it tells you to call a specific help number immediately and warns you not to close the tab. The whole message is designed to replace your logic with pure fear.
And the solution is always the same.
It is. Just close the tab. You might have to use your task manager to force it to close, but you can close it. And whatever you do, do not call the number. That's where the real scam begins.
And then there's the extremely sneaky trick of paste jacking, which relies entirely on the user's trust in what looks like helpful technical instructions.
Paste jacking is so insidious because it convinces the user they're taking a proactive step to fix a problem. A common lure is a document that won't load properly.
So the attacker sends an email with instructions.
Right. Instructions that say something like, just copy this special code and paste it into your run dialog box, or even tells them to open up the PowerShell terminal.
And what the victim is actually copying and pasting isn't some innocent command to fix a document.
Not at all. It's malicious code. It often initiates a session that gives the attacker a backdoor into the computer and all the accounts associated with it.
The defense here seems pretty straightforward then.
It's procedural vigilance. No legitimate document or application will ever require you to copy and paste strange code into a terminal just to open a simple file. If you see that, it's a huge red flag.
So this brings us to where the technical and social engineering threats really fully converge. This is where the most sophisticated attacks are living right now. The attacker in the middle, or ATM threat.
Yes.
Why is this so dangerous? Why is it bypassing traditional multi-factor authentication? And what is the technical anatomy of this attack?
The ATM attack is arguably the biggest game changer we've seen in a while, because it can render traditional token-based MFA almost obsolete for certain applications.
And its goal isn't just the password.
The goal is not to steal your password, though it does that too as a bonus. The primary goal is to steal your authenticated session.
Okay, let's unpack that. Walk us through the anatomy of that session theft. How does it work?
The attack starts, predictably, with a malicious phishing link in an email. When the victim clicks that link, they are briefly and invisibly routed through a dedicated proxy server that the threat actor controls.
So this proxy just sits in the middle.
It sits invisibly between the victim's browser and the legitimate service they think they're logging into, like Office 365 or Google Workspace. Yeah. And the proxy's only job is to intercept and record everything that passes through it.
So the user gets to a page that looks exactly like the real Microsoft login page. They enter their username and password, and the proxy steals those credentials. That's standard stuff.
That's standard. But the key, as you said, is what happens next with the session cookie.
Right.
The session cookie is essentially your digital passport. It's the little piece of data that proves you have successfully authenticated and critically satisfied the MFA requirements.
So after I enter my password and approve the MFA push on my
A
phone,
legitimate server, Microsoft in this case, sends that session cookie back to your browser to keep you logged in. But the proxy intercepts it first. The threat actor steals that critical token while it's still valid and immediately uses it themselves. And this whole process is fully automated.
and since that cookie represents a valid authenticated session, the hacker can just use it to log in from their own machine. They completely bypass the need to generate their own MFA response.
Exactly. The system just thinks the real user is moving to a different machine or maybe a different location. It sees a valid session token and lets them right in.
That is the critical failure point. But you're saying there's a sneaky second step that's even more damaging for long-term security.
Yes. Once the hacker has that valid session and is logged in as the user, they often go into the account security settings and add their own multi-factor authentication method to the account.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It is. They'll add a software token or a phone number that they control.
So the hacker now has persistent, legitimate access, and the original user is probably completely unaware this has even happened until they find some suspicious activity months down the road.
And the audit logs won't help because they'll just show an authorized user making authorized changes to their own security settings. The hacker just lurks in the account monitoring emails, looking for high-value financial targets like wire transfer requests or vendor payment changes, setting up their eventual BEC campaign.
And if that ATM approach somehow fails, they have a backup plan, which is more of a psychological brute force method.
Right.
The MFA push bombing or fatigue attack.
Right. This is designed to just annoy the user into surrender.
I've heard of this.
It's a direct tactic to either steal the session cookie or just get the user to approve a suspicious login out of sheer frustration. The attackers trigger multiple incessant MFA validation requests on the user's phone.
Just one after another, your phone is just buzzing off the hook.
Constantly, until the user, who's confused, annoyed, or just trying to make the buzzing stop, finally approves one of the requests. And that single approval is all the hacker needs. It grants them access to the session.
So, if software-based MFA, the kind most of us use on our phones, is susceptible to this ATM attack, what is the mandatory advanced defense? Especially for those high-risk finance-adjacent roles that are handling vendor payments or large donor funds.
For those critical roles, we're talking CFOs, executive directors, anyone in accounts payable, development staff. The recommendation is clear. You have to upgrade the MFA method to require a physical security key.
Something like a FIDO standard key or a YubiKey.
Exactly. This is non-negotiable for anyone with a high-risk profile who can move money.
So how does a physical key fundamentally resist this kind of ATM proxy attack? What's the mechanism?
It all comes down to something called cryptographic attestation. It sounds complicated, but the concept is pretty simple.
Break it down for us.
The physical key is a piece of hardware. It requires you to physically interact with it. You have to touch the key or plug it into your USB port to prove you are physically present. But here's the crucial part. The FIDO key creates a unique cryptographic signature that is tied only to the legitimate domain it's registering with, for example, login.microsoftonline.com.
So it knows who it's supposed to be talking to.
It knows exactly who it's supposed to be talking to.
Mhm.
So if the attacker inserts their proxy page in the middle, the key will detect that the domain name of the proxy doesn't match the expected legitimate domain during that attestation process.
And it just refuses to authenticate.
It refuses to authenticate. The session cookie simply cannot be stolen remotely in the same way. It effectively breaks that proxy chain, forcing the threat actor to give up and pivot to a different target.
It takes the human element, and therefore the social engineering element, entirely out of that initial authentication vulnerability.
It's a necessary evolution in our defenses.
And as we move into this period of maximum transaction volume, protecting those financial pathways becomes even more critical, both for organizations and for us as individual consumers.
And on that note, this is a perfect time to give a timely, and I'd say essential, thanks to our Black Friday sponsor, securitybydesign.store.
Absolutely. If you are participating in the massive consumer traffic surge that's happening from basically now through Cyber Monday, you are personally entering the highest risk digital environment of the entire year.
Whether you're a nonprofit employee working from home or just a shopper looking for deals, you need your own personal armor.
So go check out securitybydesign.store. You can find them on their Etsy or TikTok shop right now. They're offering 25% off store-wide all the way through Cyber Monday.
It's a perfect opportunity to implement some of those personal security measures against the exact threats we're talking about right now.
Definitely check them out. Okay, so now we have to pivot to AI, and we have to come back to that absolutely shocking figure we mentioned at the top.
1,740% increase in deepfake fraud in North America in 2023.
This massive, massive increase proves that AI has officially moved out of the research lab and squarely into the hands of organized crime.
That jump is a clear signal that the sophistication level has reached a point where it's cost-effective and readily available for cybercriminals. It's not a fringe tool anymore.
And deepfakes exploit the ultimate human trust factor, the visual and auditory confirmation of a person's identity.
Exactly. And the examples from F-Share's analysis show how even a skeptical, well-trained employee can be instantly overridden when they're faced with a perfect clone of a senior executive.
So let's start with the most dramatic financial anecdote they shared. The $39 million loss suffered by the British multinational Erupt.
This case is just a masterclass in psychological override. So an employee initially received a phishing email about a highly secret transaction.
And crucially, that initial email raised their suspicion.
It did. Good policy and training dictated they should verify this unusual request. However, all of their doubts were completely dissolved after they participated in a video call.
This wasn't just a voice call.
A full video call. And it was meticulously staged. It impersonated not just the company's CEO, but multiple other staff members as well, all on the same call.
So the extreme realism of the deepfake video just convinced them that this strange transaction must be legitimate. It completely overwhelmed their original policy-based suspicion.
Precisely. The core failure here wasn't the tech, it was the process. They failed to follow a simple out-of-band verification step.
Meaning what, exactly?
If the initial email was suspicious, the employee should have picked up the phone and called the CEO on a known, trusted number or walked over to their office. They needed to verify the request entirely outside the channel that was initiated by the scammer.
But instead, they verified using the same compromised channel. The video call the scammer sent them a link to, which of course just confirmed the scammer's own narrative.
And the $39 million wire transfer followed immediately after that call.
Wow. Now, the reliance on internal knowledge, or rather the AI model's lack of it, is what saved the executives in the Ferrari case.
Yes. The Ferrari example involving their CEO, Benedetto Vigna, is essential for building a defensive strategy.
So what happened there?
Scammers successfully cloned Vigna's voice, and they even captured his distinctive Southern Italian accent. They deployed this deepfake voice during a coordinated call with some of his executives, trying to rush through a large, urgent transfer.
But the executives sensed that something was off, right? The pressure, the unusual nature of the request.
They did, and they employed a genius countermeasure. They asked a specific knowledge-based question.
What was the question?
They asked, "What book did you recently recommend to us in our last executive meeting?"
Ah, something the AI wouldn't know.
Exactly. Because the AI model was trained only on publicly available audio conference videos, interviews, media appearances. It possessed a perfect clone of his voice, but it had zero access to specific internal and ephemeral knowledge like a book recommendation from a private meeting.
So what happened?
The AI couldn't answer. The line just went silent, and the attack failed.
And that really shows the Achilles heel of the current generation of deepfake technology. It can replicate identity, but it can't replicate internal knowledge or context.
We saw similar vulnerabilities with the training data in the incidents at LastPass and Wiz.
Right. In the LastPass attempt, an employee got calls and texts on WhatsApp from someone impersonating the CEO, but it was happening outside of normal business hours.
And the employee immediately recognized that the channel WhatsApp and the timing were suspicious. But also, the CEO's public speaking voice, which was used to train the deepfake, was slightly different from his day-to-day internal voice. The employee noticed the difference.
So the public-facing data we all put out there, conference videos, podcasts, interviews, is now directly fueling the training data for these criminal enterprises.
It's a huge vulnerability.
And when you add high emotional pressure, like we saw in that coordinated wave of attacks against Italian business leaders, the psychological toolkit for the scammers is complete.
Yeah, those attacks, including the ones targeting Giorgio Armani, were brilliantly framed to exploit patriotism and urgency.
How did they do that?
Scammers posed as Italy's defense minister. They claimed they needed immediate, secret financial assistance to help free some Italian journalists who had been detained in a foreign country.
So they appealed directly to the victim's national identity and their professional duty to help.
It was incredibly effective. At least one victim transferred €1 million to a Hong Kong-based account, acting under the immense emotional pressure of what they thought was a national security request.
It just proves that wealth and intelligence are totally irrelevant when powerful emotions, duty, fear, patriotism are leveraged effectively against you.
It's a powerful lesson. Fraud targets our fast emotional processing, not our slow logical processing.
Right. So moving from these big organizational targets to us as consumers, let's look at how these techniques scale up during the critical holiday quarter.
Right. The analysis from RH-ISAC and Visa PACAC confirms that these threats just dramatically increase in scale and intensity from October through December. It's directly proportional to consumer traffic in retail, hospitality, and travel.
And the threat actors' goals during the seasonal surge are pretty straightforward and financially motivated.
They have three main objectives. First is account takeover, or ATO. That's stealing credentials and one-time passcodes to bypass authentication and empty out stored value, like loyalty points or gift card balances.
Second is theft of data.
Right. Primarily PII and payment information, often delivered via infected devices from malicious apps or compromised retail point-of-sale systems.
And the third goal is just direct theft of funds.
That's using fake online stores, which we'll get to, using stolen credit card data for purchases, or laundering money via easy-to-sell assets like gift cards.
Okay, so let's break down the top 5 holiday scams that Visa PRRC identified, starting with the dominant attack vector, which is number 1, phishing and social engineering.
These scams all use that seasonal urgency as a lure. We see the fake Black Friday deals that are just too good to be true, heavily discounted travel packages.
And the package delivery smishing attacks, the texts, which just explode this time of year because we're all expecting more packages.
Exactly. And critically, they also exploit the holiday spirit of generosity. They create fake charities and donation scams using expertly crafted domains that look just like legitimate organizations to steal donor data and payments.
There's also a big increase in seasonal job scams, right?
A huge increase. They reported a 545% jump last holiday season. These are designed to steal PII from hopeful job seekers, or even worse, to recruit unwitting people to act as money mules.
Okay, the second major trend is the exponential rise of what they call scam merchants.
This is a direct reflection of how we shop now through social media ads. Visa PRC observed a staggering 284% increase in fake and spoofed merchant websites in the 4 months leading up to the holidays.
So these are sites that advertise luxury items or electronics with these deep, implausible discounts, and they're pushed almost exclusively through ads on platforms like Instagram or TikTok.
Right. And the demographics here prove just how effective this targeted social media advertising is. 1/3 of people aged 18 to 44 reported falling victim to fraud after buying a product they first saw in a social media ad.
That's a huge number.
It is.
All right, number 3 is holiday travel scams tied to the high volume of travel.
This includes fake airline or hotel booking sites, phishing emails about non-existent flight cancellations that ask for urgent payment information to rebook, and fake holiday rental listings.
You see those a lot on Craigslist or other non-standard sites where the scammer insists on getting payment outside the platform's secure system.
That's a classic red flag.
Number 4 is the ubiquitous risk of malicious holiday apps, the seemingly innocent Santa trackers and advent calendar apps.
This is just malware in holiday wrapping. Scammers create new apps or imitate legitimate ones, and they often get you to download them by clicking a link outside of an official app store.
And once it's installed,
It infects your device and just siphons off your credentials, your contacts, your payment information. The defense here has to be strict. Only download applications from known, trusted app stores like the Apple App Store or Google Play, period.
And finally, number 5, a reminder that not all threats are digital. Physical theft and in-store social engineering.
Yeah, RHISIP members reported a rise in sophisticated social engineering attempts happening inside their stores. This includes hostile behavior, threats, and even direct attempts to get store team members to collude with them.
Offering bribes or trying to leverage inside information to commit fraud.
Exactly. And retailers also have to be actively monitoring their gift card sales because criminals use them heavily for money laundering. So they have to be vigilant around bulk purchases or any kind of abnormal spending patterns on gift cards.
Okay, so we've established the nature and the scale of the problem, from the deepfake CEOs all the way down to seasonal retail fraud. Now let's shift our focus entirely to mitigation. How do we fight back?
This is the critical part. The transition from just acknowledging these threats to actually implementing an actionable defense is where organizations, and especially those nonprofits, so often fail. We have to move beyond panic and focus on policy and cultural change.
So let's detail that foundation. The Cybersecurity Basics Checklist from Community IT suggests the very first step has to be executive-level ownership.
Absolutely, it has to start at the top. Cybersecurity must be defined as a core business function, something that's critical to the mission's success, not just an IT expense on a spreadsheet.
That shift in perspective is what opens up the necessary budget allocation.
It's everything. And second, the required written policies have to be in place. They have to be documented.
And what are those non-negotiable policies?
You need a written IT acceptable use policy. You need a comprehensive incident response plan, which is essential since we know almost 2/3 of them don't have one. You need a data retention policy.
And reflecting this new landscape, a new one.
A specific AI acceptable use policy. This is brand new for most places, but it's needed to govern how staff handle both internal and external AI-generated communications, like those deepfake calls.
And since we know human error is what initiates the majority of attacks in this sector, security awareness training can't be a one-time check-the-box thing.
No, it has to be periodic and frequent. It needs to utilize simulated phishing and social engineering exercises to really test people. And the training needs to focus explicitly on recognizing and reporting these attempts to steal gift cards or divert wire transfers, because those are the high-frequency, high-payout fraud types that are targeting nonprofits.
Given how easy account compromise has become, that separation between personal and business activity seems paramount.
It's a vital guardrail. Organizations have to enforce strict policies about separating personal and business devices and emails, especially for any sensitive activity.
So no sending sensitive business documents to your personal Gmail account?
Absolutely not. And no using your unmanaged personal laptop for organizational work. This has to be compounded by ongoing, rigorous password management training, enforcing strong, unique passwords, and requiring the use of an approved password management tool.
Let's talk about the vulnerability that's introduced by outsourcing. Nonprofits often outsource their IT functions to stretch their budgets, but that introduces a whole new layer of risk.
And it's a risk that is often completely ignored. In the research, some interview participants noted that even after their IT service provider was breached, which led to a flood of email attacks against the charity, they still placed complete trust in that same provider.
That's a supply chain failure.
It is. Nonprofits, especially ones holding sensitive PII, need to have robust third-party risk management practices. That means actively monitoring their vendors' security posture, checking for offshore entities in sensitive regions, and demanding proof of compliance from their vendors. Trust has to be verified, not just assumed.
And this really brings us to the core of the problem, doesn't it? The human mind. We have to internalize these insights from psychology today about why smart people fall for these scams.
Yes.
It's not about a lack of intelligence. It's about how these schemes exploit our built-in cognitive biases and our emotions.
That is the essential insight to take away from all of this. Scams target our emotions. Greed, fear, a sense of duty, panic, and cognitive biases, like the need for a jungle guide.
Explain that. What's a jungle guide?
When we're faced with complex financial decisions or investments, which is happening more and more in our digital lives, people naturally look for an authoritative figure or a trusted source to guide them through the jungle of uncertainty. And fraudsters are experts at stepping into that role.
And the exploitation of FOMO, the fear of missing out, is a classic tool. We see it everywhere in those holiday scams, offering exclusive or time-sensitive deals.
Exactly. That feeling that you're about to miss out on a unique opportunity just overrides your logical scrutiny. And we have to acknowledge the severe consequence of all this, which is victim trauma.
Falling for a fraud leads to this deep sense of shame, self-blame, and genuine trauma, which is often compounded by the financial loss.
And that emotional aftermath, it demands a different kind of repair than just replacing the money.
Right, it's not just about the bank account.
Emotional repair is vital. Victims need to work toward reclaiming a sense of financial empowerment. That often involves getting support from certified financial therapists or planners, addressing the shame, and rebuilding their confidence in their own decision-making.
So given that the fraudster's primary tool is fundamentally social proof, using our circles of influence, our trusted colleagues, or cloned voices to persuade us to act, what are the most concrete, immediate behavioral guardrails we can put in place? How do we protect our innate and very necessary human trust?
We can implement 4 immediate guardrails. First, avoid all urgency and pressure tactics. If someone, even if it's a deepfake of your CEO, demands immediate secret action, you have to step away, deliberate before you act. Time is your single greatest defense against manipulation.
And if a deal is presented as exclusive or private, that's the second huge red flag.
Be extremely wary of any exclusive deals or private offers, especially in the investment space. Base any major financial decision on publicly available, verifiable research, not on whispers or private invites from a contact you haven't seen in years.
The third guardrail is a practical one, relating directly to financial transfers.
Never, under any circumstances, write an investment check or initiate a wire transfer to an individual person's or an advisor's personal account. Always ensure that payment is being made directly to a recognized institutional entity that has clear legal oversight.
And finally, verification of those trusted figures.
Always verify the background and qualifications of any financial advisor or person who's handling sensitive funds. Use external official directories, like the ones provided by FINRA. Don't just rely on the credentials the person presents to you themselves. Cross-reference them immediately. These behavioral changes are the only way to resist the psychological sophistication of modern scams.
And that brings us to the end of a deep dive that really synthesized the full spectrum of the modern cyber threat. From the policy gaps in nonprofit boardrooms to the technical execution of ATM, and finally, down to the psychology of human trust.
And we absolutely need to thank our sponsors one last time for helping us bring all this essential research to you.
Our sincere thanks to www.cisomarketplace.com and www.scamwatchhq.com.
So our key takeaways today are powerful and, I hope, actionable. First, the nonprofit sector saw its total cyber incidents jump by 76% to over 2,000, which confirms that social engineering, BEC, spoofing, brute force is their dominant threat.
Right, likely because attackers see it as having a higher ROI for that sector than complex ransomware.
Second, the technical threat is now defined by identity theft. Deepfake fraud surged that incredible 1,740%, which means organizations have to implement knowledge-based verification questions.
And automated attacks like ATM are bypassing traditional MFA by stealing the session cookie, making that upgrade to physical key MFA for high-risk roles an absolute necessity.
Third, during these high-volume holiday periods, you have to be vigilant against the seasonal scams that are thriving on social media, especially that staggering 284% increase in fake merchant sites.
And finally, the ultimate defense is behavioral. We have to mandate robust employee training, enforce that strict policy separation between personal and business activity, and recognize that our vulnerability to fraud is, at its core, psychological, not intellectual.
Which leaves us with a final and I think provocative thought. This is particularly relevant for the stakeholders who support these nonprofits.
We established that structural challenge. Mission-driven organizations feel ethically compelled to prioritize every single dollar toward visible program success, often at the expense of invisible security infrastructure.
So the question for these organizations, and really for us as a society, is a profound one. How must we fundamentally redefine mission success to explicitly include mandatory, robust security investments, even when their budgets are tight?
It's a tough question.
It is. Because the greatest asset these charities possess is what they call relational capital, the faith and the trust of their donors. We have to acknowledge that in the modern digital landscape, security is not overhead. It is the fundamental, non-negotiable hard infrastructure that is required to protect that intangible trust.
So the true cost of not investing in security
Is the potential loss of the mission itself.
a difficult but absolutely necessary equation to balance. We hope this deep dive has armed you with the knowledge you need to approach this threat landscape with both caution and a strategic defense.
Until next time.